Okay. Next concept is news portal implementation. News portal implementation. So as part of this project, we are going to implement header part. In the header part, again, we have three components: top bar component and brand logo component and navigation component. In the footer, we have footer component and footer list component. Footer list component. I will show you how to convert the HTML into component and how to read the data from the dialog and how to implement the dialog and how to render that content into the HTML markup. For every web page, it required multiple files. For every web page, it required multiple files. HTML is one file and CSS is one file types and fonts also one, and JS also one type of files, and fonts also one type of files, and assets also required, and content also required. Content also required. But this HTML is the main file. In this HTML, we have to refer these CSS files and JavaScript files. Without referring CSS files and JavaScript files in HTML, we can't execute these CSS and JS. And fonts will refer from the CSS files. Fonts will refer from the CSS file. And assets also will refer in HTML markup. Let's say if we want to use one image or document or video, we have to add the reference in HTML markup. And content also we need to add in HTML markup. Content is nothing but text and asset references. Text and asset references. Asset references. So this is a simple static web page. To build a static web page, so these many different files are required: HTML, CSS, JS, fonts, and assets and content. In AEM, we'll place this HTML markup in AEM components. AEM component. And CSS and JS and font files will maintain in AEM client lib. AEM client libs. And assets will maintain with AEM DAM, digital asset management. And content will store in content nodes. Content nodes, and these nodes would be available either page level or template level. Template level or page level. And the content node will always store the content like the text and asset references. The actual source of assets will store in AEM DAM, digital asset management. And the source path will refer in content nodes. Let's say if I want to use one logo, the logo will be stored in AEM DAM and will store that logo path in content node. So here the logo path is a content reference, asset reference, asset reference. For the practice purpose, I have the HTML markup. I have one template, Bootstrap template. And this is the home page of that Bootstrap template. And this is available in Google Drive. Day 11, you'll find this HTML markup, including CSS files and JS files and assets and font files. All the required files would be available in day 11 in Google Drive. So we are going to convert this HTML markup into the multiple component. So this is one static web page. Static web page. Index.html is a static web page. So we are going to convert this entire static web page into different components. And each component required .html file and dialog. So as part of this process, we are going to execute multiple steps. The first step is upload all assets into AEM DAM by using localhost 4502. Localhost 4502/assets is the console. Localhost 4502/assets is the console. By using this assets console, we have to upload all the required images, documents into AEM. So this is the first step. In the next step, create client lib and upload all required JS, CSS, and fonts. And fonts also we have to upload into client library only. So this is the second step. In the third step, convert index.html into multiple components, and each component required .html file and dialog. So these two are required for every component. So let's execute these steps one by one. The first step is simple and straightforward. Localhost 4502 and assets. Access this localhost 4502 and assets. And go to the news portal. And go to the images. The folder is already available in my local because I think in the second session we already created this folder structure. If we don't have this folder structure, create this folder structure. By default, when you deploy this news portal project, this news portal would be available under content dam, but images folder won't be available. You have to create this images folder. Inside this image, upload all the required images by selecting create files and go to the source location. In my local and desktop, the project is available, Bootstrap news template. And images is the folder and it contains multiple images. Let me select all images, Control A, and click on open and upload. Yeah, first step is successfully completed. Of course, this is a content authoring team activity to upload all the required assets into the DAM. But initially, as a developer, you have to upload all the required images for the testing purpose. You should know how to upload the images from your local file system to AEM servers. First step is completed. And second step, you have to identify all the required JS and CSS and fonts. You have to identify all the required JS and CSS and fonts and upload these CSS and JS and fonts into the client library. Upload these JS and CSS and fonts into the client library. Go to the index.html file. This is the static HTML file. Inspect element and go to the network tab. Or else open the source code of this HTML markup by clicking view page source and Control F.css. Total 5 CSS files includes are available. 5 CSS files includes are available. Check this order. First bootstrap.min.css file and all.css file and slick.css file, slick theme.css and style.css. Total 5 CSS references are there in the HTML markup. Search with JS. Again, 5 different JavaScript files are included in the HTML markup. So that means these 5 CSS files and JavaScript files will execute whenever you access this index.html file. Whenever you access from the index.html file from the browser, these 5 CSS files and 5 JavaScript files will execute. And we have to upload these CSS files and JavaScript files into our AEM client library. Localhost 4502 crx/de and apps, news portal, client libs. Client lib upon desktop is the client. You can use any client library. So here the name of the client library is not important. We can use any client library. So under this client library, I have created JS folder and CSS folder. From this HTML markup or from this source, we have to download all the required JavaScript files and CSS files. And then we have to upload into this client library. In two ways we can do it. One is manually create the required JS and CSS files. So that is one approach. Or else export this entire client library into VS Code and directly update the file system. Directly update the file system. Let's follow the second approach. Go to the VS Code and go to your apps, SRC, JCR content, right click on client lib and use import from AEM server. Import from AEM server. Because I have created the latest CSS and JavaScript in my AEM server, I'm importing from AEM server to local file system by using VS Code AEM Sync plugin. Successfully imported. I have the latest client libraries in my local. Client lib icon desktop. Let me import components also. Right click and use import from AEM server. Import from AEM, successfully imported. And expand the client library and expand client lib icon desktop and JS folder. In the JS folder, there is multiple files are available, but these files are not required. For the practice purpose, we have created these files. We can remove all the JS files and CSS files. So we are going to upload actual CSS and JavaScript files. Go to the HTML markup and search for JavaScript. For example, here jQuery 3.4.1 main.js. So this is one external JavaScript link. Download this external JavaScript link and upload into AEM server. Just click on jQuery 3.4.1 and click on this bootstrap and click on main.ezine and slick.min and main.js. But these three JavaScript files loading from local and these two JavaScript files are loading from external websites, code.jQuery and stackpath.bootstrapcdn.com. But I'm downloading all the JavaScript files into my local and upload into client library. See, but while uploading, don't upload min.js files. Min.js file, because by default AEM already minify the JavaScript files. If you upload the minified version, again it will try to minify on top of the minified content. So it is always recommended to use unminified JavaScript code into your AEM. The AEM will minify the JavaScript code. So this is one file. This is one file. In two ways we can upload. Again, here you can create manually new file and then copy paste the code. Copy paste this code. Okay. So similarly, we have to upload all the required JavaScript files into JS folder. Let me remove the existing CSS and JavaScript files. Delete. Yes, I have removed all the required CSS and JavaScript files and uploaded jQuery min.3.4.1.js. And this JS file name we have to update in js.txt. So this is very important step. So we have to update JavaScript file names in js.txt and CSS file names in css.txt file. jQuery 3.4.1.js. Save the changes. Save the changes. jQuery 3.4.1.js. Save the changes. So we have to repeat this step to upload all the required JavaScript files and CSS files. We need 5 CSS files and 5 JavaScript files. So we have to upload all the required CSS and JavaScript into the client library. Okay, to save the time, I have the existing client libraries in my local. Let me copy paste that folder structure. Your apps, SRC, main, content, this your content, client lib icon desktop. So this is available on AEM April training, AEM code D, AEM April training code, sorry, AEM code, April AEM 2024, your apps, SRC, main, content, this your content, apps, news portal, client libs, and then I'm pasting these folders. Replace. And go to the client lib icon desktop, and we'll find out the CSS folder. In the CSS folder, 5 CSS files are included. I think there is one additional one, article info.css. This is not required. Let me delete it. And in the JS folder, yeah, 5 JavaScript files are uploaded. And these names are mentioned in js.txt and css.txt. This step is mandatory. We already discussed at the time of client library. So we have to mention all the CSS file names in css.txt. And JavaScript file names in js.txt. Yeah, Suman, do you have any questions? Okay. Okay. So we have to create one more folder called resources. In the client library, we have to create one more folder called resources. It will be useful to maintain assets. For example, there is a small icons, and rather than uploading into the DAM, we can manage by using client libraries. Icon related and small logo images, and those kind of images we can manage with this resources folder inside the client library. And this will be useful to manage the fonts also. Go to the resources, and I have created one folder called fonts. Inside the fonts, I have uploaded 2 font files because these 2 fonts are being used in the news portal. These 2 fonts are being used in the news portal, and these are uploaded into resources folder inside the client library. Client lib icon desktop and resources and fonts, and inside the font, these are the 2 font files. So as we discussed, we have to refer these font files from the CSS file names. So basically, these fonts are referred in all.css file. All.css file. Go to the all.css file. You will find out the paths also. You have to update the font file paths in all.css file. See, a resources folder. Inside the resources, fonts is the folder, and then font file names. So we have to update the path here. But don't worry about this client library creation. I have already uploaded the client library in the day 11. You'll find out client libs content package from the day 11 and install directly in your local rather than spending and downloading the files and uploading into the client library and syncing into the AEM server. You can directly download the client library related content package from day 11 and install your local. Okay, so let me refresh it and expand JS files. Yes, all the JavaScript files are available in JS folder in the client library, and CSS files are also available, and fonts also uploaded. Resources and fonts. Under fonts, 2 font files are uploaded. And all the JavaScript and CSS file names are mentioned in js.txt. Either you can use JS prefix or else we can use base directory, base equal to JS, and then we can remove this prefix. And in the css.txt files also, we have mentioned all the CSS file names. CSS file names. And all these CSS files are available in the CSS folder. CSS folder. So this is how we have to upload all the required CSS files and JS files and font files into the client library. So this step is very important before converting HTMLs into the components. This step is very important. Okay, let me export this entire changes into AEM server. Right click and use export to AEM server. Export to AEM server. Now my AEM server is having the latest client library with all required CSS files and JavaScript files and fonts. So this is the second step. But this is one-time activity, so we don't need to execute this activity every day. So at the time of project creation, we'll create the client libraries. We can manage in 2 ways. One is by using front-end module. Front-end module, we have dedicated front-end team. We can hand over this module to the front-end team. They will upload all the required CSS files and JavaScript files in the front-end module. While compiling, so these CSS files and JavaScript files will create a new client library under your app. That is a configuration. Based on that configuration, when you compile the project, when compile the project, Node.js creates one client library under client libs folder. Your apps, JSR content apps, news portal, client libs. So here we create one more client library. So that is done by the Node.js if you are using UI front-end module. If you don't want to use UI front-end module, let's say if you don't have the dedicated front-end team, you can directly create the client libraries by selecting the node types. 2 approaches. That depends on the team structure. Either we can use UI front-end module or else we can use UI apps module. But either if you use front-end module or apps module, once the code is compiled, it will generate the client libraries under client lib only. Final output is same, but the way of implementations are different. Output is same. Either if you use UI front-end model, UI front-end model also generates client libraries here at the time of the compilation. At the time of the compilation and at the time of content package creation, it will generate the client libraries by using Node APIs. There is multiple Node modules are available. By using those Node modules, it will generate the client libraries. This is the one. And go to the CRXDE and check the client library. Yes, all the required CSS is uploaded and all the required JS also uploaded. And css.txt also updated and js.txt also updated, and resources means font files also available in the resources folder. So this is the second step. So let me know if you have any question before executing third step. So this step also important. If we have knowledge in client libraries, we can easily understand client libs creation and JavaScript files creation and JS files creation. Any questions in step 2? Okay, let's convert this entire HTML markup into the multiple component. Index.html is a single HTML markup. Single HTML markup. So we have to convert this single HTML markup into the multiple component for the reusability purpose. For the reusability purpose, check this index.html file. The file size is 724 lines of HTML markup. 724 lines of HTML markup. We have to convert this entire HTML into the multiple component for reusability purpose. Example, this is a top bar component. top bar component. And this logo and search is a brand logo component. And this navigation is the main navigation component. Main navigation component. We have to split this entire HTML into multiple components based on the sections. For example, here top bar is one section and brand logo is one section and this navigation is one section. And remaining components are dynamic components. See this carousel component and this grid component and this category components. Category component, and this is a tabs component. And these are the footer component and footer list component. Let's start with the top and let's create top bar component. Top bar component. The top bar component will place the required HTML markup and will make the content dynamic. But before creating top bar component, we should be able to identify the required HTML markup of the top bar. Required HTML markup of the top bar. Right click on this top bar, inspect element. See, this is the top bar related HTML markup. When I focus on top bar, see the entire section is selected. Check the top. The entire top bar is selected. So that means this is the div which is required to implement the top bar. Expand this top bar div. Again, there is multiple child divs are available. Column 6 and div. There is multiple lines of HTML markup is available. So let me create the top bar component by using VS Code. Okay. By using VS Code, you know, right, how to create a component. Component also a node in JSR repository. The component node type is seq equivalent component. If you use CRXDE, in the CRXDE, just right click on components. Example apps, news portal component. Right click on component and create node and select the node type is seq equivalent component and enter the node name. But in the VS Code, we don't have those options. So we have to create component by simply copy pasting the existing components. For example, here article detail is a component. Right click on article detail, copy the component and right click on components and paste it. And rename to top bar component. Refactor. What is it? Yeah, sorry, rename. Top bar icon component. So it is simple to create by using VS Code. Simply copy paste the existing component and rename to top bar. Top bar is a component. Expand this top bar. You will find out one file called content.xml file. For every node, .content.xml file would be available to store this node information, to store this top bar node information. Check these properties of this .content.xml file of this top bar. Primary type is seq equivalent component. JSR title is article detail because we have copy pasted article detail component. Change it to top bar. And group is news portal articles. Either you can maintain the same component group or you can create a different group also. Let me give content. News portal content because this is not related to top bar. Of course, this is a common component for all pages. And top bar and description also added, but this description is not required for the top bar component. Let me remove it. So this editor is more easy to compare with the CRXDE for the component creation or property updates. I personally recommend to use this VS Code to create your component once you are comfortable to create the nodes and its properties in CRXDE. But first do the practice in CRXDE only, so that you have an idea how to create nodes and how to update the properties and how to delete the properties. At least you should have some basic idea on component and nodes creation and manipulations. And then move to the VS Code. Yes. Top bar component and change this file name also. And this file name is no longer required. Delete this file name, writerinfo.html file, and rename the HTML file to topbar.html file. Topbar.html file. Top-bar.html. Now I have the component. In the component, topbar.html file is available. Of course, this is a different HTML markup. We have to remove this one also. And this design dialog is not required. At the time of core component, I will cover this design dialog, even edit configs also. Yes, this is the top bar component. Top bar component, and it contains one dialog and one HTML file and one .content.xml file. So this file required to store the node information. Top bar is a node. That information will be stored in .content.xml file. Directly we can update here. And go to the top bar.html file. Here we have to place all required top bar HTML markup. All required top bar HTML markup. So you can copy paste required HTML markup from here. Right click on top bar and click on edit and copy this HTML markup. This is one way, but I don't recommend this approach. Go to the source code, because sometimes this DAM will be manipulated by the JavaScript. So that's why go to the source code and search with the top bar. Search with the top bar. Yes, this is top bar related HTML markup. This is top bar related HTML markup. Paste into top bar.html. Paste into top bar.html file. So this is the simple component and it contains top bar information. But if you see here, content is hard coded. This email address and phone number and this right navigation links all are hard coded. All are hard coded. But let me use this top bar component. Before using top bar component, let me create brand logo also, brand logo component and navigation component also. Simply copy paste this top bar component and create brand logo component also. And rename to brand logo. Brand logo. And rename the file name. So whenever you copy paste a component, we have to rename the component name and rename the file name. This .html file name should match with this component name and update this content.xml file data also. So this in these three places we have to update. And instead of top bar, use brand logo. And keep it the remaining properties. Primary type is equivalent component and component group is content. And rename the file to brand logo. So here the component names are not important. As a developer, you can give the exact name in relevant names. Yes. And go back to the source code and identify the brand logo related HTML markup. Brand logo related HTML markup. So this is the HTML markup. It will be useful to render this logo and this add image and this search. I'm placing all this HTML markup into brand logo.html file. Save the changes. Next one is navigation component. But in our component list, check with the navigation. There will be one default navigation component. Yes, but in this component, we don't have the .html file. Create navigation.html file. Navigation.html file. And copy paste the required HTML markup of this navigation. So nav bar. You can easily identify this HTML markup from this inspect element. Inspect element, select this selector and place this div. See, This is the div and its child elements will be useful to render the navigation. Check this area. This entire area is selected when I focus on navbar. We can easily identify the HTML markup by using this inspect element and then selector. Create the file and place the required HTML markup of navigation. Save the changes. Done. Let me export these three components into AEM server. We have created the component by using VS Code. It will be stored in local file system. We have to deploy this code into AEM server in order to execute in our pages. Right click and use export to AEM server. And export the brand logo component also. Or else we can export these entire components rather than uploading individual component. We can use export to AEM server. The entire component will be moved from local file system to AEM server. Successfully exported. Go to CRXDE. Component. So the brand logo component is available. And navigation.html file is available. And top bar component also available. Top bar component also available. Let me create one more component called footer. Footer also required, and then later we'll implement one by one. Let me copy paste and create footer component also. Copy the top bar component and paste and rename to footer. Rename to footer. And update the file name. Save the changes. Yes, footer also ready. Export to AEM server. Yes, ready. Now total 4 components we have created: top bar component, brand logo component, and navigation component, and footer component. We'll implement this footer list later. Let's use this component in our template because header and footer is a reusable sections. So rather than defining at page level, it is always recommended to define at template level. In the template level structure mode, we have to add these 3 components or 4 components. Because this header section is common across all pages, we should not store at page level. Even we can store at page level also. Even we can store this header and footer at page level also. But problem with this approach, after creation of 20,000 or 30,000 pages, let's say if you want to update header section, it required to update in all pages. So that will be big headache for the content update. So that's why if any content is common content across all pages, define at template level. Don't define at page level. Example, header and footer. This header and footer is common across all pages. So that's why we are going to use these 3 components in our template. Go to article 1 and then navigate to template editor. Template editor. Yes, click on page information and click on edit template. So this option will be useful to navigate from page editor to template editor. Click on edit template. And this page is being created with article template. It will navigate to article template editor. and go to structure mode. So here we already added 3 components. We'll find out this component list from the content tree. Go to the navigation and click on content tree, and we'll find out 3 components. First component is title component to configure the header title, content component, and then footer component, and then footer component. Total 3 components we have added. So let me delete this title component because I have to add 3 different components in the header section. Just for the practice purpose, we have added this title, and this title is no longer required now. Delete. And click on this container, click on plus symbol. If you select any component and click on plus, we can add a new component on top of this component. Top bar. But this component is not visible to add. This component is not visible to add. If you can't edit, if you can't add any component, there are 2 different issues. One is with the component dialog. Let's say the component doesn't have the dialog. We can't see that component in this insert new component window. This is one approach. And second problem, in the template policy, means in the template policy, in the component policy, if that component is not in allowed list, not in allowed list, in that case also we can't see that component. For example, here we are trying to add a new component in this container. We are trying to add a new component in this container. A new component in this container. So click on policy button to update the allowed component in this container. To update allowed component in this container, click on policy button. Click on policy button, scroll down, we'll see news portal content. News portal. See, there is one more group is added. Maybe we did not use the same name. So that's why one more group is added here. See, these 3 components added, brand logo and footer and top bar. Let me allow this new group. So basically we have to use the same group name. I think there is a typo or the space issue. So that's why one more group is created with this name. And select the navigation component also. Navigation component, I think it will be available under structure. Yes. Click on done button. Click on done button. Now search with the top bar. It's not. Okay, let me add here. Let me update this component group. I think there is an issue with this component group. Let's use the same component group. Yeah, see, there is a space issue. News portal. This is the right group for the existing group to match with the existing group. Portal, top bar, brand logo, and navigation and footer. Where is footer? Yeah, now it is displaying. Top bar is the component. Let me add the top bar component, but we can drag and drop this top bar component to top. So this is the right location. Top bar component. See, including the design it is displaying because we already applied that client library to this template. The client lib and desktop is the template client library. We already applied to article template. Let me add the brand logo. Brand logo and drag and drop and add the navigation. There is a broken links we have to fix and remove this footer and add footer component also. Add the footer component also. Save the changes. Okay, so this is the final view of the template. In the template, total 4 components being used, and go to the content tree. First component is top bar component, and second component is brand logo component. Third component is navigation component, and then container component and footer component. But in the footer, I think we did not update the HTML markup. Let me export the component again. Export from AEM server. Sorry, import from AEM server because we have updated the components. And update footer.html file. Footer.html file. So when you copy paste it, so top bar HTML markup is available in footer component. So we have to identify footer related HTML markup from the source. From the source. This is the footer. There are 3 different sections are available in the footer. Yes, footer start from here and end here. Just copy paste the HTML markup and paste into footer.html file. Save the changes. Now you can export only footer.html file. Means export to AEM server. Okay. Now you can see the footer also. Footer content also we are able to see on page. But this is not right implementation. If you see here, in the top bar component, this email ID and phone number and these links are hard coded. Even in brand logo component, this logo path is hard coded and the ad path also hard coded. In the navigation, all the links are hard coded. If you hard code, let's say if you hard code this content and deploy into the production environment, the site also in live. And if you want to change this mobile number, again, we have to make the changes in the code base. Go to the top bar component and open top bar.html file and update this phone number. So that is not the right implementation. The problem with the code base, if you make changes in your local, it required deployment into dev environment for unit testing and then QA environment for QA validation, means functional testing, and stage environment for UAT testing, and then production. For every code change should go through this process. Unit testing in dev environment, functional testing in QA environment, and UAT testing and stage environment, and then production deployment. We can't make any changes directly into the AEM production environment. So that's why we should not hard code any content which is required to change in future, including this phone number and email ID, and these links also we should not hard code in our .html files. Then how to implement it? So we have to provide input fields in the dialog. So for example, here email ID. To configure the email ID, I should provide one input field in the dialog. Even for the mobile number also, I should provide one one field in the dialog. Even for the right navigation links, about, privacy, terms, and contact. So these links also should be configurable through the dialog. So we should not hard code any content in our .html files. The .html file should always contain HTML code, and HTML code only. And it should not contain any content. So here the content is a text or image references. We should not hard code any image references or asset references or content inside the .html files. So let's implement the dialog to configure the email ID and phone number and these links. Let's implement by using VS Code only. Go to the top bar component, and open the dialog. This is the dialog. Seq-equivalent dialog is a node name, but in the VS Code it will display _seq and _dialog. And open this content.xml file. Content.xml file. We'll see this entire node and property structure here. So this is the dialog we copied from article detail component, because this component itself created from article detail only. Check this XML file. This is seq-equivalent dialog node, and check this string resource type property. And content node type is anti-unstructured, and it has one property called string resource type property, and it is pointing to container component. Items is a child node of content. Items is a child node of the content. The type is anti-unstructured, and again it is having the multiple child nodes. Article title is a field. Article title is a field in the dialog, and this is the node name. Article-title is a node name. Type is anti-unstructured. String resource type is text field, and field label is article title. Name is article title. Similarly, article description and article image. Let's modify this component. First, I have to update the dialog title. The dialog title is top bar configuration. Done. And the first field is email. Email is the field. Save. Type is text field. Yes, by using text field, we can configure the email. And update this field label. And update this name also. Save the changes. The first field is created through VS Code in top bar component. And second one is phone. Second one is phone. For the phone number also, you can use either number field, or you can use text field also. Phone is the one. And update the name property also. Save the changes. Total 2 fields I have added in the dialog. Email is the one and phone number is one. To compare the CRXDE, so this VS Code implementation is more faster. Directly you're opening XML file and updating name and field and string resource type property and phone number. So that's why I always recommend to use this VS Code for the dialog implementation of component. And I need one more field called right now. Right now. But I would like this right now as a multi-field. If you see the HTML markup, see here total 4 different links are displaying. So these are the anchor tags. When I click on about, it should navigate to about page. When I click on privacy, it should navigate to privacy. When I click on term, it should navigate to term. When I click on contact, it should navigate to contact. So these are the anchor tags. So each Label is pointing to one page. About is a text. It is pointing to about page. Privacy, terms, and contact. So we should not hard code these links. And moreover, these links are not fixed. Maybe the client would like to display 3 links or 4 links or 5 links or 10 links. That depends on the client requirement. You should be able to add n number of links, either maybe 1 link or 2 links or n number of links. So that's why here we have to use multi-field. That's why here we have to use multi-field. If it is a multi-field, the if it is a multi-field, the client can easily configure the n number of links. By clicking add button, they will simply create a new link. So that's why here we have to use multi-field. Use multi-field. Label is right now. Label is right now. So in the multi-field, we have to add a mandatory child node. In the multi-field, we have to create one mandatory child node called field. If you remember the multi-field implementation, we have to create one mandatory child called field. Field JSR primary type is ND unstructured. And here it required the name. We should not define the name in the multi-field. Instead of defining name in the multi-field, we should always configure in field. And it required string resource type property also. And instead of multi-field, use path field. Because when I click on add button, it should generate one path field. And one more property is required, root path. A root path equals content news portal USEN. Save the changes. Save the changes. So it will be little difficult to the people who doesn't have this XML node structure. So this is a simple XML file. Let's say if you want to create child node, you have to add start node and end node. See here, we don't have this closure because this is the self closure. This is called a self closure. But this right now is having one more external closure here because we have to create a child node. So this is the child node, but this child node also having the self closure on. So if you're feeling create more difficult to this multi-field, you can use CRSD, create the node and import from AEM server. And import from AEM server. Save the changes. And let's read these properties in .html file. Go to top bar component. Go to top bar component. Remove the hard-coded values. Use $curly braces. Properties dot email. Email is the name property value. Email is the name property value. Email. So this is the one we have to use because when you click on save button in the dialog, the data will store in the form of key value pair. Your key is email. Value is whatever the value you have entered in the dialog. And second key is phone. Top bar.html file. Remove this hard-coded phone number and use dollar curly braces properties dot phone. Save the changes. Let me export this data. So in my local auto sync is enabled. So that's why when I click on save button, automatically it will export to AEM server. Auto export and imports are available. So even we can update this auto imports and export by using the settings. Go to settings. Sorry, go to extensions, not settings. Extension. Click on AEM sync configuration. So here we have to enable the checkbox. Automatically synchronize file system changes to server. When you click on save button in the VS Code, automatically it will sync to your AEM server. Without using export to AEM server, we can auto sync the file changes in VS Code to AEM server. Now refresh this template again. See, this email ID and phone number is not displaying. Email ID and phone number is not displaying because we are trying to read the data from the content node. Even content nodes will be generated in the article template structured node because we are updating this template. Whenever you drag and drop top bar component in the structured mode container, it will store in the structured mode node. But in that content node, we don't have the email ID and phone number. Let me configure email ID and phone number through the dialog. Go to structure. Yes, click on this top bar and click on configure. Okay, I think when you click on sync button, this dialog is merged with the existing one. This dialog is merged with the existing one. We'll do the cleanup later, but let me add the email ID here. And phone number 7799030707 and click on done button. See. So we are able to update this email ID and phone number without making any changes in the content because this data will store into the content node. This data will store into the content node. Content changes we can make it any time, but code changes we can always deploy through the code through the CI/CD pipeline. So that's why we should not update, we should not hard code any content in the code base. Go to this template. Go to this template. And we are updating this template structured mode, JCR content, root. See, these content nodes are generated because when you drag and drop top bar component in this container, this node is generated. When edit the dialog of this top bar and enter email ID and phone number, that details also stored in this content node. Email ID and phone number. And this content node is pointing to top bar component. Check the link source type property. In the top bar component, we are reading email ID and phone number. Email ID and phone number. Similarly, we have to implement for the remaining components also. For example, this logo is hard coded and this add image is hard coded and the search text is hard coded. For every content, we have to create a different type of fields to make that content configurable and to store that content into the content node and to read that content from content node to HTML by using HTL. So let me create 4 more sample pages for the testing purpose. Niche portal USEN outside of EN. Select any one of the template. About us is the page. Create one more page. Contact us. Create one more page. Terms. Create one more page. Policy. Policy. So there are 4 different pages I have created. So in my template, I have to refer those 4 pages in the right side navigation. At present, this content is hard coded. This content is hard coded in the template top bar component. So we have to make this content dynamic by configuring this page link through this dialog. Click on Write Now. So when I click on Write Now, path field generating, click on Browse button and select this Contact Us. Contact Us is a page. And select the policy. And select the terms. And select About Us. Okay, so this is the multi-field. The multi-field data always store in the form of the string array. If it is a composite multi-field, it will store as a child node. If it is a normal multi-field means when I click on add button, only one field will generate. Only one field will generate. That is a normal multi-field. And that normal multi-field data will store in the form of array. We have to read that array values one by one and render these anchor tags. But to render the anchor tag, 2 different values are required. 2 different values are required to render the anchor tag. Anchor href equal to content, for example. Let's take this contact as only. .html and then contact us and then close the anchor tag. So this is a simple anchor tag, but for the end user, only this text will be displayed. When you click on this contact us, the user will navigate to contactus.html file. There are 2 different contents required to render this anchor tag. One is href link, and second one is contact us. Means label, anchor label, anchor link, and anchor label. These 2 are required. But in this multi-field, we are configuring only page links only. Contact us and policy and terms and about us. Only page links only we are configuring. Then how to pull the title from this page? This page is having the title, and this policy also having the title, terms also having the title, and about us also having the title. How to pull the title from this page path? So this is a simple string. This is simple string. Value of the string is content, news portal, USN, about us. This is a page. From this page, we should read page title. So for example, this is the path, but it would be available under content, news portal, US, EN, about us path. In the JCR repository, the about us is a page. It is available in this location. For every page, JCR content is a mandatory child node. In this content, JCR title is a property. JCR title is the property, value is about us. When you enter the title while creating the page, it will store as a JCR title property in the JCR content node of the page. It will store as a JCR title property in JCR content node. So this value we have to read. We know the path. Based on this path, identify this JCR content node and then read this JCR title and render that value in the anchor tag. Because we have only the page path. From this page path, read the page title. And render into HTML markup. render into HTML markup. When I click on save button, it will store as a string array. String array. The property name is right now. Property name is right now. It will store as a string array. Click on done button. Go to CRXDB. Refresh top bar. Top bar. See, right now is a property name and value is string array. 4 different values are stored. 4 different values are stored. You know how to iterate this array. This is an array. You know how to iterate this array. We can iterate this array by using data hyphen list. Data hyphen list is a block statement. It will be useful to iterate the list of array values. For the top bar component. So here write data hyphen hyphen list dot link equal. Either you can use variable name, without variable name also it works. Dollar curly braces property dot right now. And remove these multiple anchor tags because this list will iterate. List will iterate 4 times. At that time, these anchor tags will generate. So here variable name is item because I did not define any variable. Default variable name is item. Render the item in the href. Render the variable in href. But in the href, we don't have the extension. See this path. Contact is the path only. We don't have the extension. In 2 ways, we can add this extension. One is by using .html here directly. Or else we can use @extension attribute. Extension equal HTML. This is the one. Yes. The paths are available in the content node. We are reading and rendering. What about this title? What about this title? In the first iteration, item value is contact us. In the first iteration, item value is contact us. Second iteration, policy. Third iteration, term. Fourth iteration, about us. Then how to read the title of these pages? How to read the title of the pages? Use SLY, data hyphen SLY hyphen use dot content resource equal dollar So here we're creating a resource object for this page. So this is the dynamic path. In the first iteration, contact us page path, it will return. And then appending JSR content. It will create a resource object to JSR content of the first piece. JSR content of the first piece. So this is one Java object. The object name, it could be anywhere, any name. Data hyphen SLFN use is a block statement. It will be useful to create object for Java classes, HTML files, JS files, and content resources. So here we are trying to create object for JSR content node of the first piece. So here the path is a dynamic value. In the first iteration, contact as page path, it will return. And then we are appending JSR content. And once you have this object, from this object, we can read the titles. From this object, we can read the title, JSR title property. Save the changes. JSR title property. Save the changes. So the first iteration, it will return this path, appending this JSR content and trying to read this the property. Once you have object of this path or node, from that object, we can read the JSR title. And refresh the template. Now you can see this order: contact us, policy, terms, about us. Open the dialog, scroll down, add one more page, for example, articles, and click on done. So this article will render as a fifth link. While rendering this article, it will go to this location, go to the JCR content, and read the JCR title property. See, this articles is the JCR title property of article page. Even we can change this order. About us, contact us, article. We can change this order. Click on save button and check the HTML markup. See, anchor tag. So this is the page path we have mentioned in the dialog. From this page path, we are reading and injecting this data, contact us. If you go to the contact us page and update the JCR title, it will reflect here. Because every time while rendering this top bar component, it will read the title. It will read the latest title from the contact us. It will always read the latest title from the contact us. If you go to the contact us or policy or terms or about us page, update the page title, those page titles will reflect here. So this is a completely dynamic component, completely dynamic top bar component. Let me know if you have any questions here.